always, we brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs have been breeding. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur.
Hey everybody, it's Eugene Driscoll of valleyindy.org. Welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indy podcast. Today we'll feature an interview with Stephan Behuniak, and I'll try not to breathe heavily into the microphone. Sorry about that. I'm out of breath from running around. It's been a busy day. Stephan is the chairman of the Town Democratic Committee, and last night, July 22nd, Dems endorsed a slate of candidates for municipal office for Election Day coming up in November. All right, hopefully, here's Stephan.
Hello.
Hey, Stephan, it's Eugene. How you doing?
Hey, Eugene. Doing well. How are you?
Do you want to get right to it?
Sure, if you'd like. Yeah, whatever you want to do.
All right, here we go. So with me, as promised, is Stephan Behuniak, the chairman of the Seymour Democratic Town Committee. Stephan, welcome back to Navel Gazing, your favorite podcast.
It is my favorite podcast. Thanks for having me, Eugene.
Yeah, no problem at all. So I had done this by accident with Kurt Miller, the Seymour First Selectman, like a week ago. I ended up not going to. I had planned to go to both nominating conventions for Seymour, for the Republican and Democratic town committees in Seymour. But one thing led to another. I couldn't. But I thought this is a good way to go over the slate of candidates Democrats endorsed for municipal office. And I guess when's Election Day? It's in November. Is it November?
November 5th.
November 5th, coming right up. So now, Boom, it's July. The campaign season is officially here. So, Stephan, let's go over the list of candidates. I know there was a story in the New Haven Register this morning, and I'm sorry to talk so much, but the headline was basically like, oh, they don't have a candidate for first selectman. What was the reasoning behind leaving the top spot blank this year?
Yeah, well, I mean that's always the headline in these kind of elections. Unfortunately, a lot of people just pay attention to the very top of the ticket. But this year, just like 2 years ago, a lot of similarities. Kurt Miller continues to run. He has strong numbers. It's difficult to find a qualified and a serious candidate who would have a good chance of taking him down. So that's not to say that there aren't other people interested in it. It's just we have to make a decision whether or not we want to expend a lot of resources running against Kurt and not necessarily have a great chance to win. You got to pick the right person to represent the party well and someone who actually could do a great job in the role. So that person never really materialized this year, so we decided to focus on the under ticket.
And in terms of the challenge for Democrats in Seymour, I've asked you this before, so I apologize for being an ignoramus, but I assume the Republicans outnumber Democrats in Seymour on the voter rolls?
On the voter rolls, it's pretty close, to be honest with you. But both parties are dwarfed by unaffiliated voters. And just looking at trends in Seymour and a lot of the other valley towns, the unaffiliated are breaking hard to the right. So they're doing a good job of getting people out. You look at it from all the way up the top of the ticket, from president to Congress people, senators, you name it. Republicans are pretty much winning just about everything in Seymour right now.
Any idea why that's so? I mean, this is a little off the topic of the stated topic, but any idea why that is so? How are the Republicans doing so well locally?
It's a good question. If I had the answers, I think I would probably be in a better position. But I think Seymour is, sort of a distressed community in some ways. There's certainly a lot of nice neighborhoods and it's not a bad town, but there's definitely people struggling. It's a place just like the rest of the valley that maybe our heyday was years ago, and we still haven't fully recovered economically the way that some other places have. So whenever that happens, people tend to kind of gravitate towards the party that does, maybe towards them it does a better job of speaking to those issues. And I think Democrats somewhat have a bit of a problem speaking to regular people. We're working on that a lot more. You see people like Cara Rochelle, who does a tremendous job of that, and that's why she's been so successful so far. But I'm at the core of the Democratic Party. We are the party of working people, but we need to get back to really making that known to everybody, and being a lot more forceful with it.
Okay, and Cara Rochelle, of course, is a state representative for Ansonia Derby. All right, so your Board of Selectmen candidates, go ahead and name them, because I'm going to mispronounce Rob's last name, and that's embarrassing.
Sure. So we have two candidates for Board of Selectmen, Rob Van Agen, who is currently a selectman. He took over the term of Karen Stanek, who had passed away a few months ago, unfortunately. But he's done a great job in that time. He's really learning the ropes, getting up to speed on everything, making a lot of good contributions, asking all the right questions. So, he's doing a great job. We're going to keep him on. And then
wait, before you get to the
Chris
next guy, wait, before you get to this next guy, hold on 1 second. I'm familiar with the next guy, but in terms of how long have you, do you know, like, Rob personally? Did he go to Seymour High School with you or anything like that? What's a little bit?
Rob's a few years older than me. I met him through politics about 2.5 years ago. He had at one point made an effort to run for a state Senate seat during the special election in February of 2017. So that's when I got to meet him. He had recently bought a house in Seymour and started setting up his roots here. He's from Seymour, but really making it official. And he ran for the Board of Selectmen last time, and he missed out on winning, but he stayed very active. He served on a couple of appointed committees in town, done a great job. So Rob is a bright star, and that's to say nothing of all the community service work that he does, which is just incredible.
Okay, and then the second gentleman who's running for the Board of Selectmen?
Yes, the second gentleman would be Chris Bowen, someone that you may have heard of once or twice.
Yes.
He, someone who actually came to the Seymour Democrats through being on the Great Give live stream a couple of years ago. We got in touch with him. He had recently bought a house right down the street from myself. Chris has really immersed himself in the world of Seymour politics, Seymour government, served on a couple of appointed commissions. He's currently an alternate on the Planning and Zoning Commission. He serves as the vice chair of the Economic Development Commission. He's really working to get the hashtag Seymour up and running, which I think is great. He's really thrown himself all the way into it, and I couldn't be more excited for him to get a chance to serve on the Board of Selectmen. And
like you had mentioned, I've got to know Chris. I don't even know if I'm speaking English, but he's been like a constant on the Valley Indy social media presence pretty much since the day we launched 10 years ago last month. And we have this tradition now where when we do our fundraising once a year, we always bring Chris on, and now he's running for the Board of Selectmen. But I got to ask you now, are you gonna tell Chris? He has a bit of a foul mouth. He has a bit of a potty mouth at times. Not judging him. He's an unusual candidate, I guess. He's not your typical municipal candidate for office in terms of how he uses social media and how he expresses himself, how he made his announcement that he was looking to become a candidate for office. Good, bad, and different in this local political scene?
I have absolutely no plans to tell him to change anything. I love it. I love everything that he brings to the table. The only things that, I like to work with Chris on is sometimes he'll put the cart before the horse a little bit. He'll talk about things that aren't fully, vetted out yet. But I do like that also, because his his idea of this radical transparency is huge. It's really important. I think it could lend a lot of, it's a really good thing for residents to pull that curtain back a little bit. And he's somebody who's really trying to bring that about. But in terms of, you look at his personal Facebook page, which is I'm sure what you're referring to, and some of the foul language, which doesn't bother me in the slightest. I think people are a little sensitive to foul language, to be honest with you.
I am. Although I have another podcast where I curse, so I'm a hypocrite. But no.
Well,
yeah.
I think as long as you don't cross lines of like hateful speech or anything like that, which Chris has never done to my knowledge, and I don't think he ever would, knowing him personally. I see nothing wrong with it. Here's the thing: people use profanity in their real lives all the time. Everybody does it that I know of, so if you're going to judge people on doing it publicly, I think it's a little silly and a little hypocritical. So I don't really censor myself either, but I have no problem with it whatsoever.
Well, let me ask you something about Bowen. Forget the occasional dropping of an F-bomb. That's nothing. The fact that he uses all these English spellings, like favorite has a U in it.
That drives me crazy. I don't get it. I don't know where it comes from. To my knowledge, he's never been an Englishman, but it's okay. That's his personal flavor, and he's welcome to it.
All right, let's move on. I apologize for spending so much time on one candidate.
We could talk for hours about Bowen. He's the best.
Yeah, and I apologize to Chris if this is putting him in an uncomfortable spot. But all right, the Board of Finance. You have two incumbents who've been on there for a while, I believe, right? Go ahead.
Bill Sawicki's been there for several terms. Kristen just got on this past 2 years ago. She had been an alternate, Kristen Hanowitz, that is. She had been an alternate, and then she was appointed to a full-time position on the Board of Finance, hence why she's running this year. Bill is the chairman, and he is, he's just he's one of the best resources our whole town has. He's just an excellent financial mind, honestly, and we need him to stay on as chairman. He's, a lot of the stuff that Kurt touts all the time, all the good financial standing that the town is in and the achievements we've made, a lot of that is due in part to Bill, and Kurt would even admit that. So it's great to have him back and willing to run for another 4-year term. Kristen is, someone who I've known for a long time. She's a friend of mine. She's really thrown herself at the town and really looked to just dive right in and make a good impression. And she's learned a ton in the last couple of years, a lot from Bill. Actually, Bill's a great resource to her. And she's really excited to keep the ball rolling there.
And what's interesting, at least to me, about that board, I mean, first of all, the Board of Finance, that they're the ones that have, before the budget goes to the public, it's the Board of Finance who puts that thing together. And I guess one of the strengths of Seymour is the fact that I just assumed Bill Sawicki was a Republican at a Kurt Miller's party. I'd never realized that, my own ignorance, I'll admit it, but that's where you see that lack of infighting in Seymour. From what I observe, it's not a town where one party just tries to sabotage the other all the time.
Sure. I mean, Bill's he'll tell you, he's not a highly political guy. He doesn't really like to get involved in that kind of stuff. He is a Democrat for sure, but he tries to kind of rise above that stuff, which I definitely respect. Though I would love to, have him a little more involved. It is what it is. He's doing what he needs to do, and he's just a huge asset to the town. And, even Kurt would say that there's really nobody else who should be the chairman of that board, especially with the amount of work and the amount of responsibility that they have.
Yeah, that's a huge commitment. Going back to the Board of Selectmen for one moment, I forgot to ask you in my obsession over Chris Bowen, don't both these guys get on automatically? Is that where I read?
That's correct. They do. Yep.
Wow. Okay. So that's that. And does, in terms of Bill Sawicki and Kristen Hanowitz, is that the same there, or is there
we could go through like a full on who's getting on and what all that too. But we do have another Board of Finance candidate, Kwame Dunbar, who is he's running for a 2-year term on the Board of Finance. So he is currently an alternate, and like Kristen, he has been there for about 2 years. He's kind of in the same vein as Kristen. He's really getting his feet wet. He comes from a financial background. An actuarial background as well. So he has a lot of good experience in that field. So we think it's a good time for him to try to step up and become a full member. another, young person too. So we have a very strong slate of Board of Finance candidates. I'm not 100% sure on this, but I believe that we are guaranteed to win two of the three. We could potentially win the third.
Seymour does have every election year. I'm always confused. At the end of the day, on election day, I'm never 100% certain who's actually been elected in some of these races. So it can be confusing. All right, and then also the Board of Finance, you list two alternates as well who are up for election.
So Jeff Hanowitz, who is Kristen Hanowitz's brother, he had been on the Planning and Zoning Commission previously. He's currently on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Another, young guy who's, just really getting involved, diving right into, the Seymour politics. A lot of these people, I'm trying to bring along and trying to give them increasing levels of responsibility and help. So we figured the Board of Finance alternate position would be a good place, for him to get his feet wet and learn a little bit more about the finance of the town. Again, learning from Bill and Kristen and all the others who are on that board. And then we also are running Grace Bringwine, who is she's actually at UConn right now. She's very young, but she's super eager. She is a real rising star, someone to keep your eyes on, just, inside and outside of politics. She's awesome. She does so much good work just all over the place. But I asked her, I was like, hey, Grace, I know you're not going to have a lot of time. How would running for an alternate position work for you? And she was all in, and it's really exciting to see that there are some young people who really do want to get involved and really do care about the town and the process and, the financial side of it. It's really, really exciting. So I'm very, very excited about the full makeup of our Board of Finance slate.
Okay, and then moving on to the Board of Education, two very familiar names to anyone who's read a newspaper in the Naugatuck Valley in the last 10 years.
That's correct. Yep. Jim Garofalo, who, has been there for a while. Same with Kristen Harmeling. The Board of Education is this year. It's a weird thing how it works in Seymour, but essentially there are 4 positions up for re-election and 4 people on the ballot. So all 4 will go through. So
okay,
as long as these people made it through their caucuses and they are not primaried, it should be a low controversy type election. But
and you guys don't have any primaries coming that you're aware of, do you?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
There's still a couple weeks for people to file for the petition for a primary, but I don't know of anyone who's interested in doing that. So
okay.
I don't see that happening on any of the positions.
Gotcha. And then moving on to planning and zoning, what's going on here, Stephan?
Yeah, Mike Flynn, great town person. He goes to a lot of different meetings, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, someone who's involved in our town committee. So we wanted to, give him a shot at running for planning and zoning, something he knows a little bit about. And then I assume you're referring to me on there. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons that I decided to give up my seat on the Board of Selectmen after this election and instead run for a planning and zoning spot. There's a lot of reasons. One of them is, we need to, thinking strategically, we need to get our best people elected all up and down the slate. So if me, Rob, and Chris all ran for Board of Selectmen, there's a good possibility that one of us would miss out on being elected. So, we had to take that into consideration. Planning and zoning is something that I'm very interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Interested in learning a lot more about. We are not guaranteed to win any seats on planning and zoning this year. So that's another, I look at it as a big challenge for myself. Frankly, I don't think it would be all that challenging for me to be reelected on Board of Selectmen. And I don't say that, in an arrogant way. I say that as incumbents have a gigantic advantage.
Huge. Yeah.
Just based off of name recognition, you look at, it's rare that an incumbent will be knocked off of a board, especially when it's not a highly contentious time. So, I don't want to find myself becoming complacent. I think a lot of people in town politics become extremely complacent after a short period of time. So I'm looking for a new challenge, somewhere that I'm very interested in, and somewhere that could potentially benefit the party as a whole. And then we have this whole other aspect of Seymour's Planning and Zoning Board, which Seymour's Planning and Zoning Board is a mess. Quite frankly, I don't often talk negatively about town politics. You know that about me, but that's really the one board where change is sorely, desperately needed. I saw the Republicans, they made a big push to turn over some people on the Board of Police Commissioners, which I thought, which I wasn't surprised by, but I'm very shocked that they did not do anything about their incumbent members of planning and zoning, who I think really could use an upgrade.
Now, I'm completely ignorant of the Seymour Planning and Zoning Commission, but are you basically saying that the current makeup sort of makes it hard for economic development and development to happen in town? I know they've been talking for a long time
exactly.
about. Okay.
Yeah, so you look at the number one thing that people talk about in the town of Seymour is from a negative aspect. It's the lack of economic development and whatever that means to people. But there's definitely something there, and it's something I've talked about, something that a lot of people on the Slate have talked about, a lot of the Republicans have talked about. And then you look at how our Planning and Zoning Commission runs right now, and it's everything gets kicked down the can. Every can gets kicked down the road. They need an extremely large amount of hand holding from town engineer and different other town officials. It's a board that really needs some fresh blood in the mix, and I pride myself in diving headfirst into everything I do as it relates to town politics and learning as much as I can. So I think that I can help bring about some change on that board.
All right, moving on to the Board of Police Commissioners, up for a 4-year term. Tom Bennett. Hopefully he's not the guy who bullied me at Somers High School in 1992, is he? There was a guy named Tom Bennett back in the day.
I'd be very surprised if it was the same guy. To be quite honest with you, I don't know a whole lot about Tom Bennett. I know he is a retiring state police officer who has a very good reputation from a lot of people in town. Have talked to me about him, saying like he would be a great person to get involved. So he came to us and he asked if he could run for the Board of Police Commissioners, and we said, yeah, let's go for it. Let's give it a shot. All
right, and then also incumbent Colleen Fries, Board of Police Commissioners, up for another 2-year term.
Yeah, we have Colleen Fries up for.
I'm sorry.
Up for a 2-year term.
Freeze.
Yep.
Sorry.
At the late Frank Conroy's request, who unfortunately also passed away recently, we appointed Colleen Fries to fill his term. I think she's done just a really great job so far, getting up to speed with everything. She ran for Board of Police Commissioners 2 years ago, so she's very familiar with the board, and she knows what's the personalities at play and what's going on. But she's I think doing a great job, and I really hope that we will be able to keep her on for another 2-year term.
Is she an attorney?
She is, yes.
Okay, I'm familiar with her. All right, and Library Board of Directors.
Yep. So we have Jean Uhelski, who is an incumbent. She's this is about as low controversy as you could find on a board. She does a great job. She's a longtime Democrat, longtime member of that board. Just one of the nicest people you'll meet. And then we have another young woman, Elizabeth Alvarez, who came to me not too long ago, actually, and said, "Hey, I have 2 young kids. They utilize the programming at the library all the time. I would really love to get involved and help steer some of that stuff. It's such a great asset to the town and a resource for us to have. I'd like to be a part of it." And I said, "Yeah, let's sign you up. Let's get you involved." So I think we have a really nice slate on the library board now. This board is really the only one that's kind of changing. It's going down from 7 to 5 members, with this election. So we'll see how that shakes out.
And then last but not least, the Board of Assessment Appeals, which is actually a hugely important board if you want to go challenge your assessment like I did in Derby a few years back.
Yeah, it is an important board, probably one that not a lot of people even know about. But
right.
It's a 3-member board. Tom LaPaglia, who we are running for re-election, is an incumbent. He's been serving on that board. He's actually as of August 1st, will be stepping down his role as the Democratic Registrar of Voters in Seymour as well. So somebody super involved in the town, really another one of Chris and my neighbors. He's a great resource for the town. He does a nice job on the Board of Assessment Appeals. We talk about it all the time, even though it is it's only about 4 days a year that board even meets. So, you got to get your appeals in a timely fashion. And then we're running another longtime Seymour Democrat and the Seymour elected official, Sandra Gestick there. looking to see if we could, we can grab a second seat on that board.
Okay, wonderful. So that is the entire slate of the candidates endorsed officially by the Seymour Town Democratic Committee last night, July 22nd. As of this recording, we're doing it a day after. But let me just ask you to close it out. I got to ask you, I can't let you go without asking. I thought the huge news out of all these nominating conventions in the Lower Valley the last 2 weeks was the Ansonia Democrats endorsing Phil Tripp, an anti-Cassetti, I guess former Republican, to run against the incumbent mayor, Cassetti, in November. Were you surprised by that? Do you have anything you want to share about that particular race?
Yeah, of course I'm surprised by it. And it's not my, it's not my position to say. I think it's a very interesting strategy, to be honest with you. I think Phil Tripp is a very popular figure there, despite him kind of going against the king there. Which it's an very interesting dynamic. I'm not sure, to be honest with you, if we were presented with a similar opportunity in Seymour, that we would have done the same thing. But I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. I like to say that in local politics, party doesn't really matter that much, because the way that, or Democrats and Republicans don't matter that much anyways, because the way people identify Democrats and Republicans is very far removed from, local politics. People think of it as on a national level, and that's just really not the case of the town. So Phil Tripp's been aligning himself with a lot of Democrats over the last couple of years anyways. So I think in a lot of ways it is kind of a natural fit. I think they're going to be, and some of the Democrats are going to be in a very interesting position if he does win, if he does upset Mayor Cassetti, because then, some people will see it as you've made the deal with the devil here, and now you have to live with it. But I think, I don't question his commitment or his desires or and some of the Democrats. So I'm just very interested to see how it'll play out. I think it's going to be a fun one.
I don't know for me if that's good or bad. But those are all my questions. I guess if anybody out there who listens to this podcast or reads the accompanying story that I hope to write in like the next hour, where can people find out more about Seymour Democrats and your candidates going forward? Is there like a one-stop place they can go?
Sure, that's a great question. We have our Facebook page, Seymour Democrats. So actually, it's Seymour Democratic Town Committee, but we are also in the process of bringing a website back. But really, the Facebook page is the number one place to go. If you want to get in touch with us, you can message the Facebook page. You could always reach out to me. My email is stephan.behuniak@gmail.com, so I'm easy to get in touch with. We're going to be putting out a lot of stuff about the campaign. One thing I do want to emphasize is of the 17 people that we have running, 8 are under the age of 40, which I think puts us right up there with any slate in the entire state in terms of young people, which I think is awesome. It's something that we haven't seen a lot of electoral success recently, but we've seen a ton of success in getting some younger people and some new blood involved and really committed to the future. So I'm super excited about this slate of candidates, and I think we'll be sharing a lot of good information out there soon.
All right, Stephan. Thanks as always. You're one of the most responsive elected officials in the Naugatuck Valley, which I really appreciate. So thanks again.
Well, thank you
for taking the time. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, Eugene, and thank you as well for having me on. I do appreciate it.
No problem.
For hundreds of years we've brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs have been reading. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. Our readers are in the opens each day. Online clickbait, a prurient way. It's free from give it away. Advertising, metastasizing, newsroom shrinking, constant attrition. We'll ride the dinosaur. We'll ride the dinosaur. Dinosaur. Deadlines, bylines, pictures too. Editorial comment for a buck or two. Fire down the block, the murder next door. And now we wonder what it's all for. Social media coming free to you, funny pages, the mayor's wages, criminal seats, corruption schemes, ink state wretches asking tough questions. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. The presses are running all through the night. We're printing the truth with all of our might. We're platform agnostics, got that interweb too. Buy an ad, see what we can do. We still have subscribers, still have our fans. We're here every day, so give us a chance or we'll make an art stand. Just hold us in your hand and we'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. Dinosaur.